What's up, guys? Yeah, back to you, Randy. Shit, we've been better when you start this thing off. Let's go.
That's the same thing I asked last at the football game. What the hell? I guess this is a roundabout way of getting an update on Jirel, but is he that important for the rushing game, or was Saturday also a product of game situations?
Well, I think yes. I mean, obviously, what you've seen from Jirel early in the season is, man, he's been really good. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job running the football for our football team. Not only was he dinged up, Cartavius is dinged up, who, we felt very strong about, and I obviously those two guys not being in does have some effect on the game. Now, that being said, we certainly have belief in, the rest of our running backs in our football program, and I thought those guys did some positive things for us in the game on Saturday. Again, I would go to game flow, and I know, that was a great question asked last week is, I think maybe after the Baylor game is, when you are in a situation and, man, we're down 2 scores, you're trying to get yourself back in the football game a little bit. And so I think the flow kind of goes against the grain of where we need to play and where we would want to play. Whether we can be better or the flow of the game can be better, those are all things that we got to continue to do a great job of. But, I think the biggest piece of the question you asked is, man, do you miss Jirel Brock? And, after what you saw in the first 3 games of the season and really the first 4 games of the season, you'd say, yeah, you missed him a little bit on Saturday. But, again, I thought Deion Silas played the best game of his career. Really proud of what he did and certainly what he can continue to do for us. Eli Sanders got in the game, and, man, you're going to need depth, and especially at that position. So now, that being said, where are those guys at? I think we'll know a lot more as we get on the practice field today and tomorrow. We would certainly love to have any of those guys available for us, and I think those guys are closer than farther away. But until we can get through today and tomorrow's practice, I think it'd be hard to give you an exact answer on that.
Let me ask one more thing in respect to the rushing game. Is the offensive line giving you what you'd expect the offensive line should give you?
Boy, I think they played phenomenal at times, through the early part of the season. And again, you're putting those guys in who gets challenged the most. I think when you get into a game that, one of their strengths is probably taken away at times, and that's the ability to consistently run the football. And so, I think they have played good. I think there's certainly growth that can continue to happen. I'm really proud of what that group has tried to do to steady the ship. And again, I think they're globally offensively, we've been a hair off at times, and we need to be a hair on to be better. So that's not just one group or one unit. I think that's the global whole, and a little bit of it is the way the game has flowed the last 2 weeks. Probably has not been the way we would want to play the game. That's best for us.
When it comes to the running game, when you're talking about game flow, I guess within a certain game, is there a point where that becomes a wider picture question mark of, if you can't get into the flow, does your running game get backed up, especially I guess with these injuries now too, where it's not going to be where you want it to be here as we get into middle of October?
No, I mean, it's got to get there if we're going to be the team we want to be. So we're going to keep pounding away at it. We're going to keep finding solutions, and we got to keep doing a great job of trying to get the game. Because, again, when you're talking game flow, that's a global whole, right? That's not just one side of the ball. And I think last week it was significantly different why that game flow was that way. And then this past week, I think it was certainly got to a way. And a lot of that's still self-inflicted, which is great for us, because to me, when it's self-inflicted, man, there's great growth ahead and great growth opportunities ahead of us. So, that's what I would say. Are we just gonna bag who we are or what we're about? Like, absolutely not. And I think, again, we've got too good of players. We just got to continue to grow in some areas and continue to push forward. And some of the mistakes that we've made, and the inconsistencies that we have, can't show up, especially when the margin, as we've seen the last 2 weeks, they're razor thin. So that's how I would answer that. But a great question.
Matt, your defense has been really good at forcing turnovers. I know the margin isn't as lopsided as you'd like, but Orion with 3 forced fumbles leads the league. What's he doing? And B, just how good has that group been in giving you guys opportunities that way?
Well, I would say, especially in the second half, what they have done in those turnovers, especially you look at the Kansas game in general, it gave us a chance to win the game. I think obviously you're disappointed that the game didn't go the way you wanted it, and there's some things that are tough, but the reality for me, and I know I said this after the game, even in the moment, I can stomach it because what I watched from our seniors, and you talk about the play Blake Clark makes on Saturday. Man, if you really watch the game and see how Trevor Downing played in the game, man, you watch what Orion Vance does, Kendall Jackson does, Anthony Johnson does, Reeder does. Man, like those guys are making big-time plays in some critical moments that even when, man, we drop the punt or we miss a field goal, man, our kids, they're continuing to play and give us a chance to win the game. And so as the head coach, all you can do is ask for that from your great leadership. And I have always believed when the best players and your seniors are playing their best football, at some point, no matter what the range of growth can be, especially when you have such a young team, man, they're eventually going to catch up to that senior class as long as they continue to play at the rate they're playing. And I think that's a really huge thing for me. So yes, and to answer your question on the defensive piece, it's huge because those guys are giving you chances to go win the football game, and they literally did that in the second half. Long kickoff return, man, we turn the ball back over, we get the ball on the 1 yard line, man, drive it back, put us right back in situation to go win the game. The drop punt, man, we create the turnover, Kendall creates it. And so, you just see guys making big-time plays in big-time moments, and that part's really rewarding. And the gut punch is you're not winning the game because you feel like, man, those guys deserve the right to win the game. And the reality is there's still some areas that we got to catch up and clean up to be able to win the football game.
What do you see from Adrian Martinez on film? What's allowed him to have success the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'd say the starting point there, you're looking at another elite runner, elite athlete at the quarterback position. And, I think, again, what you would say about Adrian is just watching him through his career. Man, the guy's played so much football. He's confident. He's, things weren't going great early, and you feel like, man, he just kept plugging away at it. And now, man, the last 2 games, you would put his success up as good as anybody right now in the country at the quarterback position. So, I think a guy that's really confident, a guy that certainly knows and understands what his role is. And, man, whether it's the running game or it's the ability in the passing game to get the ball where it needs to go, he's doing it at a really high rate right now. So, great challenge.
What's the process, I guess, the challenge for improving your special teams when we ask you about special teams, it's different than asking about offense and defense, and that the field goal unit has nothing to do with the punt return unit, has nothing to do with the kickoff unit. How do you go after that when you've had issues, at different parts across the board?
Yeah, I think the great thing about where we're at is I feel like we're finally at a great place schematically of where we want to be. Those aren't the issues. The issues are, the continued growth of some of the people in those units. And again, I still think when you're a little bit of a young football team, where the youth will show up the most is on special teams at times. And, I think, again, man, it stinks. It showed up a little bit on Saturday, and again, a guy that you have great faith in because you would say his maturity early in the season, from just take the kicking game alone, man, probably won us some games, probably gave us a chance to win some big games early in the season. So, I think that's part of the reality, and that's why it's a team game, right? It's, man, all 3 phases have to be playing really well for you to win football games, especially right now in this conference where, you're not getting a bye to play a C game and win the football game. You have to play a football. And so, I really don't think it's any different than offense and defense in the reality of it. You evaluate the players. You put the best players in practice in the game to play the game, and, you continue to try to make sure schematically you're putting those players in the best position to be successful. And that wasn't an issue. That wasn't the issue on Saturday.
Dimitri Stanley seems to be having a bigger and bigger role. What's he giving your offense?
Yeah, I think the big thing for him is, what I'm really excited about that he's done for us is he was a guy that came in and really had a great summer and a great fall camp. To watch him now have the ability to take the top off the defense at times, the ability to have strong hands and make the contested catch, those are things that I think will guide us moving forward. And I think the confidence that he's gained in the last 2 weeks, it's been really big, especially with the amount of coverages that we have seen shifting towards Xavier, allowing him to really be a big threat for us, and Jalen continuing to play really well. I think those two guys continue to even out the offense at times for us. So really excited about what those two have given us the last 2 weeks.
Why is why is the Big 12 so crazy right now?
Yeah, I think honestly, and this is I've said this for the last couple of weeks, from top to bottom, you got good coaches. You got a lot of veteran quarterbacks in the league in terms of veteran football players, and quite honestly, I don't know if there's a whole lot of disparity in terms of overall talent. Now there's still some teams that got some elite talent, and you're going to have to play elite football to combat it, but. Man, I really feel like there's just a lot of equality, and I think you're seeing it in even just the representation of what the scores are on Saturday. It's not a lot to a little. It's those are really close football games across the board, and I haven't watched everybody to give probably a valid answer on everybody, but that would be my overall take, and certainly what it looks like from afar.
I've not done any research on what I'm about to ask, so.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, okay. We talk about getting under the center or behind center. Is the portal playing any part of what's going on right now with the Big 12, do you think? And like I said, I don't know who's transferred or who hasn't.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great story. I don't know, and that'd probably be a great research project. I don't know. I think for us, that's not really the world we've lived in a ton, even though you say, man, some of the guys that have come to us, through that process have been a huge help, Reeder and Stanley and some of those guys. So I would say probably throughout college football, it's changed the dynamic, it's changed the game. And, I think it allows people to maybe reload rather than try to rebuild at times. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's a great comment.
I know you've talked in the past about the respect you had for Coach Schneider and obviously with Coach Kleiman now. Are there comparisons that you can draw kind of in the makeup of these two programs? And obviously it is a rivalry that the fans really enjoy and everything like that. Can you draw some of those comparisons there?
Well, I think when you date back to Coach Schneider and, man, the research, talking through and with him, investment in kids, attitude and effort, belief and process, I think those are all things that we worked really hard to build this process here at Iowa State with. And so, I think the foundational building blocks that have existed there, and obviously Coach Kleiman's success at North Dakota State, and then certainly coming there, probably followed a very similar path to that process. So, I would say a lot of similarities. We have the utmost respect for them and their program. We talk a lot here about attitude and effort and, believing those are the foundational building blocks to build a team. And I think when you watch their team, those are the things that jump out to you. So, I think a lot of parallels in terms of how the infrastructure of the program is built.
So Kansas State has a very strong defensive front. How do you adjust to that, especially with the injuries in the running back room?
Yeah, I think again I feel like we continue to face some great defensive fronts. Really have for the last 5 weeks, and so I think that's prepared us to know where our strengths are, how to continue to evolve where we need to evolve, and again, I think the confidence of our offensive line continue to grow forward. Gives us the opportunity to go compete against a really great front and a great front seven.
One guy in that front seven stands out to me, at least, and that's, I got to check the pronunciation, Anyudike Uzama, the D-end, 3 sacks the last game, high level last year. What threat does he pose just in his ability to disrupt in multiple ways? Yeah,
I think the thing that you respect first and foremost is, I've always felt great defensive ends have to play the run first and then have to react and be able to play the pass. And I think the one thing that I've been so impressed with him is his ability to do just that. It's not just, hey, are you a great guy that gets sacks? That's kind of like, that's a stat. But can you play the run? And usually the elite ones have the ability to play the run, and they find their way into the sacks because their ability to adjust to it. And I think that's what's so impressive about him. I think that's what's allowing him to play at such a high rate for, his team right now. And again, last week, phenomenal. Phenomenal for the team. Maybe was the difference in the game last week in a lot of ways. So certainly somebody we have to understand where he's at, what he does, and certainly be prepared for him in the football game.
It seems like Jalen's been able to, I don't know if it's substitute for the running game a little bit, but in those short passes, 7 to 15 yards can really help you out. Is that something that, again, can't substitute, but you can utilize it continually as you try to work the run game more in?
Yeah, I think you continue to evolve Jalen in as many ways as you can. He is such a dynamic playmaker, and what's his greatest strength is ball in hand. And, I still feel like we're only scratching the surface of Jalen Noel in every way, as the punt returner, as the kick returner, as the ball carrier, as the receiver. And I think for him, it's just continuing to grow, us continue to find every way to give him the advantage to make a difference in the football game. I thought he had some of those big plays last week, really got us going at times. And we got to continue to find ways to get it goes back to players' formations plays, man. He's one of our best players, and we got to continue to find the best ways to put the ball in his hands to have success. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, man.